This Ti thing kind of crazy. A little while ago, Ti and his daughter hit the news when it came out that he is very protective of her. Which, you think a man being protective of his daughter, is that really a bad thing? Well, it came out he goes on doctor visits with her and makes sure she's still a virgin and stuff. And I thought nothing of it. I thought it was kind of not a big deal that a man is protective over his daughter. Now, I could say, I don't think as a father you need to go on a doctor visit with your daughter to make sure she's still a virgin. Out of all the lessons and the knowledge you might try to give to her, you want to give her some level of trust that she's listening to you and will do the things you're teaching her. I think when you don't show that trust towards your kid, they tend to ignore what you're saying anyway. But he's back in the news because he called quality time with his daughter thought prevention hours. And that didn't make a lot of these women happy about that. This is just a short article, but I thought it was interesting. It says here, T.I. is getting criticized once again for how he is parenting his daughters. While T.I. was chatting with 21 Savage on Father's Day and raising daughters on the episode of his Expeditiously podcast, which aired on November 28th, the Atlanta rhymer called his quality time with his daughter thought prevention hours. This was in response to 21 revealing that he is more overprotective of his daughter than his son. Now, I don't know what the negative part of that is. I mean, your son, you instill in him different things than your daughter. The things you teach your son is to be independent, is to be self-motivated and such. And so you do tend to let him kind of roam a little bit more to understand that failing isn't the end. When you fail, you can always turn that into a success. So there's a reason why you let your son roam a little more than your daughter, because the dangers for your daughter are a little bit worse. As he said, the next sentence here, because sons can't get pregnant. And that's true. I mean, if all fathers had in our community, the black community, if the fathers had a certain level of control over their daughters, then the sons wouldn't be able to. You hear a lot of people get angry with him when he says because sons can't get pregnant. Well, that's true. If you're protective of your daughter, if our community in general is more protective of our daughters, then the sons wouldn't have access to the daughters to get them pregnant. So that's kind of a mute point. But here he says you can't keep her from running into one of them niggas. Me and Lil Duval call it thought prevention hours. Keep your daughters off the pole. You spending time going to daddy-daughter dances and taking her on trips where it's just you and her. Those are thought prevention hours. Well, isn't that one of the things we hear women say? A lot of the times these women say they didn't have a relationship with their father, or if they did, it was not a good one. It was toxic. So he's basically saying if you give love and care and order to your daughter, she's more likely to have a different life than if you don't. Right? Is that a bad thing so far? Tip added that it's vital for fathers to spend as much time with their daughters as possible. Is that bad? I don't know if this article is necessarily bashing him. I think they're just reacting to the reaction, I guess. You don't do that, they're gonna be somewhere in Magic City trying to figure it out. This is absolutely necessary for any father. He said, if you aren't putting in your thought prevention hours and your daughter end up a dancer, don't blame her now. You do not set the example. You did not show what the fuck it was that she should be doing versus what she's doing. Now, when it comes to the strippers, the quote unquote sex workers, a lot of those women, not all, but a lot of those women have a stigma of being, when they were younger, they were abused physically, sometimes sexually. So if you have a father in your life that's making sure that none of those things are happening, doesn't that stop them from later on in their life deciding that sex is a whimsical thing and it doesn't matter and you can just have sex with anybody and have all these spirits on you? So once again, what is bad about what he said? if you're telling your daughter, you're giving her game and understanding how men work, understanding how relationships should work. Now I know T.I. is not not the first person necessarily that should be giving that advice about relationships, considering him and Tiny's relationship. But the point is, if you have a man in your life at an early age, setting an example for you about what a man is, then you'll make better choices about the man you're with later in life. Once again, like his final sentence, you did not show what the fuck it is she should be doing versus what she is doing. So that kind of proves his point right there. Now, some people said that he was hypocritical because he's obsessed with his daughter's sex life. Right here it says his obsession with his daughter's sex life is so uncomfortable. Like, why does he keep talking about sex and his daughter? Then another said, your son could get someone pregnant. So you wouldn't hold him accountable? Or is it that you support him abandoning a child? Acknowledge the way you treat your wife before you're trying to top prevention hours. You're disgustingly obsessed with your daughter's sex life. Here's some people support his parenting skills and protect of his daughter. Are people really mad that T.I. said him spending time with his daughter are thought prevention hours? How is that calling his daughters a thoughts? He says spending time with them in this way is preventing them from becoming that. Motherfuckers love to be mad about something. But the main thing I want to talk about is this here. Because this is actually hypocritical of the women who speak this way. A lot of these women that say stuff like this are feminists, or those intersectional feminist type women. Now, if I'm not mistaken, aren't one of the beliefs of feminists is that giving young girls earlier sex education prevents teen pregnancy, right? Isn't that a talking point they always use, that the earlier you introduce sex to kids, at least talking about sex to younger people, they tend to be more protective of, getting pregnant and such, on STDs. Well, why is it when T.I. speaks about these things, it's now an obsession? But when parents don't talk about it at all, it's neglectful. So what's the difference? I'm just confused. I have a opinion about some of these things that it's almost like whenever a father, particularly a black father, come out in the media and says things that people disagree with, he's castigated so much more harshly for simply being a parent. It's almost like especially towards his daughters. I believe a lot of people believe, and this is a small segment of our community, believe that black men should not be allowed to have rulership or any sort of control over their daughters. Because as you know, the last couple of years, there's been, like I said, a segment of black women that have separated themselves from the black community and they don't call themselves just black. They're black women. They're their own group. They're not connected to us. If you remember from the Ice Cube, when he went on that show with Vivica A. Fox and Lisa Ray and them, what did they say when he said the contract for Black America is for all black people? They said no. Black women have separate issues. Black problems are not black women problems.
I got to ask you because you're on the show with the Cocktails with the Queens. And there's a reason for that. It wasn't to have you defend or not defend Donald Trump. It was about,
I care about what's in this contract with Black America for women. And it's not, we're not mentioned at all in the contract with Black America. And
you are mentioned. I mean, when you mention black people, you mentioning black women. So don't count yourself out.
No, that's not true.
That's like administration said that when they
black people is not black women. Black
true.
Women are not included in black people.
That's like when the president says minorities, then he's including black people. But we all know that that's not the case. Black women have specific needs that are not also being met. And we also feel that there should be some things that are specific to us
and our plight as well. And I
understand that.
I feel like as a
man, you can leave.
No.
I feel like
I just offered y'all to write a section up for it. I just said I don't mind if you guys help us. You guys help us write a section.
And I thought that was very revealing. I believe there's a segment of our community that believes the failure of our young boys falls at the feet of only the men of our community. So whenever a father is a deadbeat and his son grows up and he's not successful, they can say, well, his father wasn't in his life. He had a deadbeat father. There's no blame on the mother. But when a daughter, because in our community, and like every community in America, young girls have a higher success rate as far as college and such. So the women want to take the credit for the girl's success, but they don't want to take the blame for the boy's failures. That's just my belief. I think that, once again, I believe that's a small segment of our community. But I think the way they act towards T.I. and other black men like Ice Cube, because this is bigger than just him trying to parent his daughter. This is about black male authority. Just the same way with Ice Cube. It's not just about his daughter. It's not just about Ice Cube and politics. It's about black male authority and how it is constantly casted away as something that's not needed, not necessarily. And actually they call it something toxic. Toxic masculinity. Man. But that's just my opinion on that. I think this little storyline they got going with T.I. is very entertaining. It's kind of funny. We'll see how things go with his daughter in the next couple of years. Because if she go left, they're going to blame him. And if she turned out to be a wife and have children and move on, they're not going to give him any of the credit. They're going to say she did that despite him. But yeah, that's just my opinion on that.